So
Mr. Chairman, can you hear me? Can you hear me okay? I'm a little bit concerned about my Wi-Fi connection.
It's terrific. You're loud and clear, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Outstanding.
So why don't we get started? Good evening, folks, and welcome to this special meeting of the Melrose School Committee. It is Tuesday, April 28th, 2020, and the time is approximately 6:34 p.m. For the record, let me state that this meeting is being recorded. This special meeting of the school committee has been convened for the purpose of holding a hearing on the school budget. Members of the public who wish to speak to the budget will be afforded 5 minutes each. As with the public comment period at our regular business meetings, members of the school committee will not be responding in real time to any comments. With all of that said, is there a motion to open the public hearing? Made by Mr. Obremski and seconded by Mayor Broder. Ms. Hogan, would you call the roll, please?
Ms. McAndrew?
Yes.
Ms. Rossi Thomas? Is she not here?
She is absent.
Mr. Obremski?
Yes.
Mr. Sell?
Yes.
Ms. Driscoll?
Ms. Driscoll is participating and is indicating, yes, she is here.
Okay. Mayor Broder?
Yes.
Mr. O'Connell?
Yes. Passes. And I see that we have members of the public as attendees, but I have not received any requests to participate in the public hearing. I see that Mr. Melrose has raised his hand. Thank you for that, Mr. Melrose. And Mr. Melrose, you are unmuted. Welcome.
All right, thank you. Tell me, I can't see online here. Are there other attendees other than me at the meeting that I'm just not seeing on the list?
No, if you're seeing the attendee list, you're seeing everyone that's here.
So I'm the only, I see you as panelists, but there's only one attendee myself. Is that correct?
No, there are actually several other attendees.
It would be nice to see, you know, who else is in this meeting at some point, but thank you.
Okay, that may be beyond my technological capacity at this point, but I'll do my best with that, Mr. Rose.
So, a couple other things on for this budget hearing tonight. You don't have anything posted as the budget document. On the meeting that's coming at 7 o'clock, you have a version C FY21 budget posted for the budget discussion. When I go to that file is literally a one-page thing that shows the Hoover School, Horace Mann School, and the beginning of the Lincoln School. So I guess what I would really like to know is which is the budget that you are using, that you're presenting, that we're having the hearing on?
The superintendent has submitted, Mr. Melrose, 3 budget scenarios for our consideration, and the school committee at our meeting next week, if it's the will of the committee, will be voting to choose one of those proposed budgets.
So there's not one proposed budget at this point that you're working off of?
That's correct.
I mean, there's so many differences out there. It's hard to address, 3 different documents at once about. I'll begin. It would be very helpful to see the complete revolving accounts to know, what the possible transfers in could be if they aren't all being used now. That information isn't there on the outside funds list or the offsets list. I do want to say that I'm not seeing that the budget that you have is really trying to attempt to do anything differently to improve the academic outcomes of the Melrose students. I see the behavioral stuff and all the different special ed things. But, you know, at the core, we need to be educating students, and we need to be doing a better job of it. And I don't think that this budget is really attempting, or any of the budgets are really attempting to make a difference. I've come here for a number of years identifying that the high school gets the short end of the stick every year on almost everything. High school is having increasing enrollment over the next few years. High school needs more teachers. There necessarily have to be some smaller class sizes in the high school, and finding it over a number of years far too easy to gut the high school of the resources that it needs to do the job it needs for the kids. Every kid in the Melrose Public Schools is going to migrate up to the high school, right? And if you say you're supporting them wonderfully in first and second and third grade, but then you're abandoning them later on, it doesn't help them. You need to do a system K to 12 and do better. I do notice a few things. Last spring, the superintendent talked about that we had some people who were going to be attached to Melrose for out-of-district residential placements. And I did notice this year that we went way over budget with our tuition to non-public schools line item. In fact, you know, we basically had, I think in October, we had something like a $2.3 million monies left in the budget, and then the next month we had a negative $700,000. I do notice that there's a request for an unanticipated $450,000 to come from the special ed stabilization account. I haven't heard anything about that talked about. Perhaps I've missed it, but it would be certainly nice to know that we're actually budgeting appropriately for special ed for next year and that we understand it. I do also notice that the special ed director position is going from 131,000 to 148,000, which is a 13% increase or so, which is significant. I don't know why that is such a large increase compared to some of the other things. This issue of substitutes at the high school again has been abandoned, it seems like, unless I'm missing something in the version I'm seeing here. I also noticed that, you know, you budgeted $50,000 for legal fees for the school committee for this fiscal year. That was gone by, I think, the middle of September this year. It was either expensed or encumbered. And now it looks like you've actually spent $70,000 so far this year, and you're budgeting $50,000 for next year. It would be interesting to understand why there was such a large amount of legal fees back last summer, and how do we know that that's not going to happen again? And how did we get by on $20,000 of legal fees the rest of the year? For the rest of this year, and now we're going to 50,000 next year. There's a lot of little things like that that don't all add up. That would be nice to see. You know, five minutes is not a competent amount of time to actually go through a budget and hit the important elements of a budget that's of this much money, right? We're talking $38,000, $39,000, $40,000 almost. And there are so many different items, and so many things are not well supported in the documentation. Even the document I'm looking now is comparing budget A and budget C, but it doesn't even total the different FTEs that it's purporting to show on here. I really would think that before the school committee gets into this budget, we need to have better information for underlying the different issues, so you can actually make a determination with some of the summary of the detail to work off of. I heard a noise there. Is that a time limit or something, or what's? Did I miss something? Should I keep going? I'm not hearing anybody. Can you hear me?
Chairman, that's 5 minutes.
You're approaching the 5-minute mark, Mr. Rose. If you could wrap up, that would be great.
Okay. You know, we understand next year is going to be a difficult year. Hopefully there'll be some federal money coming to the state where the state can help us, or some federal money coming directly to us or something. But what wasn't done in the budget process this year, which is going to harm us again, is we never actually had a real top to bottom analysis of what are the core things we're trying to do in our schools. What are the resources we need to do that? How do we allocate the resources amongst the different functions that the school needs to do? There's no discussion of that. So now when we do have to figure out and make difficult choices, the work hasn't been already done, that we've prioritized what is the need. And we understand why we need this over that, and the relevant importance and how to make a balance. It's unfortunate every year you have a full year to be thinking about these things and discussing these things, and to actually come up with, this is why this is important and it fits in this position. You know, I understand you're going through the required process tonight in a budget hearing, but the budget process should be a full year process. I do say this every year, and every year we see week after week or meeting after meeting, no new business under finance and facilities. I hope that next year somebody will take over the finance facilities and engage in these issues all the way through the year, so that when we get to this point in the year, we're not just left with a bunch of numbers on a page. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Melrose. Much appreciated. And are there any other members of the public who wish to the committee with regard to the school budget during this public hearing? And as no other members of the public have indicated a desire to address the committee at this public hearing, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Made by Mr. Mayor, seconded by Mr. O'Brien. Ms. Hogan, would you be kind enough to call the roll?
Ms. McAndrew,
Yes.
Ms. Razzie Thomas,
Yes.
Mr. Obremski,
Yes.
Mr. Selm,
Yes.
Ms. Driscoll,
And Ms. Driscoll is indicating yes.
Mia Broder,
Yes.
Mr. O'Connor.
Yes. And that motion to close the public hearing passes unanimously. And with that said, is there a motion to adjourn this special meeting of the school committee? Mr. Obremski, seconded by Mayor Broder. Discussion, seeing none, all those in favor indicate by raising your hands. Terrific. And Ms. Razzie Thomas, are you voting in favor of that motion to adjourn? Thank you for that. And Ms. Driscoll has voted in the affirmative as well. So that motion to adjourn the special meeting of the Melrose School Committee passes unanimously. And we are so adjourned. Ladies and gentlemen, we will be returning at 7 o'clock for our regular business. Thank you all very much.